Today, I will be going over what Pathways is exactly, how you can start in it, and what can you get out of this. You may be wondering, why is this important? Well, simply, Pathways is important because Peachtree Toastmasters is a very tenured club. We have members in this club who have achieved DTM status. Every member in this club who has been here longer than 2 years has completed their CC and CL credits. And members who have started with Pathways more than a year ago have at least made their way through level 1 and even further. This is important because going forwards after 4 months, Pathways will become the only educational program for this club. So to make sure that we have meaningful meetings each week, we have speeches to fill our time, you all will have to start working on Pathways. And I think that can be a great thing because Pathways is something that can be confusing at first, but once you start to know more about it, I think there are a lot of merits to it. So my goal today is to tell you more about Pathways. And the way I'm doing this is by actually giving a Pathways presentation from my own pathway from level 5. I started Pathways with this club, and as I think many of you may have heard at least one of my speeches, maybe several. And I'm sure that it has shown you that Pathways speeches are not that different from regular speeches. When I started Pathways, I chose the focus of persuasive influence as my pathway. That was my goal. That is something that I wanted to learn more. How can I speak more persuasively? And my biggest test with Pathways came when I decided to become an officer of this club. The things I was learning in Pathways were directly applicable to my role as the president. I was learning things like networking skills, or handling an audience, communicating more properly, managing my time and long-term goals. These are skills that you learn from Pathways that you cannot learn anywhere else. I think this is just something that I find just really valuable and something I can personally vouch for Pathways. So no matter what your goals are, there is something that Pathways offers that will help you become more, learn more about exactly what you want from it. Okay, so to start off, the first thing I'm gonna ask everyone is, what do you know about Pathways? Okay. Oh, not the best question to ask. Okay.
Then it's confusing.
How many of you are familiar with these smiling people and on the books? Have you seen these people?
Yes.
Yes. They're really welcoming. Well, these books were the basis for the main educational curriculum for Toastmasters before Pathways became a thing. And the best way I can explain what Pathways does is by literally showing you this. It's literally merging both of these things in a single place. Pathways is merging leadership and communication projects into a single place. There are other small differences as well. For instance, before we had 10 speeches, and during these 10 speeches you would get credits for leadership and communication. But with Pathways, we have 15 speeches instead. But because we are also doing leadership and communication in the same place, the additional speeches help you work on the skills together. So you're no longer just doing speeches, but sometimes you also do projects. When you do the 10 speeches, you get credit for a CC and a CL. But with Pathways, instead what we have are levels. Levels 1 through 5. And each level has a different number of speeches. So you no longer have to finish 10 speeches to get your CC. And instead, once you finish 3 speeches, you get level 1, 3 more, level 2, and so on. So you get credit for how many speeches and projects you're completing as you go on. I think that's a great thing because you can work on exactly the things you want and you actually get credit for them sooner. There are other things that make Pathways really great, in my opinion. One of these is the different number of learning paths. So with Pathways, one thing they introduced is that we have different areas in which you can focus on your skills. With competent communication manuals and the leadership manuals, everyone was doing the same 10 speeches, like vocal variety, body language, researching, but you're not really working on skills that you want to get out of it. With Pathways, we have skills like, if you want to do persuasive influence, like me, you can choose that path. Or if you want to work on humorous speaking, there's also a path for that. There's one for learning how to give better presentations, one for team collaboration, strategic relationships, coaching, visionary communication. These are all different paths, and they have different skills that you can learn from these paths. So that's one of the greatest things about Pathways, is that you specify your goals that you want to get out of Toastmasters, and you get those skills from it. So to start with the main content of today's presentation, I'm going to be going over 5 main topics. These are topics that I personally found to be really confusing, that I think can be a little challenging. So I'm going to go over each of them separately. And to start off, we're going to talk about enrolling. Okay. So, quick question. After all of the emails, how many of you actually enrolled in Pathways this week? That is great to hear. My next question is, how difficult was it? Or how easy was it, should I ask?
It's pretty easy.
Pretty easy?
I have no idea
Not yet.
whether what I did enrolled me or not.
Well,
It said confirmation, it said click here, so
Okay.
I don't count myself in the clear part.
We will figure that out for you. So, it's good to hear that at least a few of you had an easy experience with Pathways. But there are still some challenges, as I'm sure many of you know. But one of the things that I actually forgot to mention is that you all have the Pathways information manual. This is something that the club will continue to have from now on. It will stay updated. For this presentation, there are some slides which will have slide numbers at the top. For instance here, they indicate which pages we are talking about at this moment. Because there are 2 different versions, if they are on different pages, the old version, which was sent last week or was outside, is at the top, and the newer version, which was sent this morning, is at the bottom. But in the other cases, you can refer to your manual at the right times. And feel free to take notes. If you have questions in the middle of my speech, you can also interrupt me and I will answer them right then, rather than waiting till the end. So, to enrollment. First of all, the church does not have internet access. So the best way I can do it is by showing you a video of how the enrollment process works. So this is a small video. I'm going to be walking over and talking over and show you exactly what the steps are. And it's pretty easy. So the manual shows you how to log in to the Toastmasters website. You have to create a password and log in. Once you do that, you're going to come to the path selection page. This is where you start your Pathways journey. So with path selection, the first thing that will happen for you is you'll get the option to choose whether you want to use the online portal or use printed materials. Yes, with Pathways, you can still use printed materials if you want. However, it does cost more, and they do charge an extra $25 if you want to use the booklet and you to order it. So I recommend that everyone use the online system. It sounds challenging, but it's really not. And since everyone in the club is using the online system anyways, we'll all be on the same page if everyone is using Basecamp. Once you start the online system, what will happen is it will start an assessment. The purpose of this assessment is to help you figure out what your goals are from Toastmasters. These questions are simple. They will ask you questions like, what are your goals? What are your communication styles? How do you use communication in different situations where you have to communicate properly? and other types of questions. It is a 10-minute questionnaire and it takes some time. However, by the end of the questionnaire, the assessment will end, and Pathways, the website, will actually suggest to you the paths it thinks are correct for you. These are the matches it thinks are good for you based on the answers you have given to the questions. So for instance, with the answers put in here, the best match was visionary communication as the correct path. However, if you do not want to choose visionary communication or strategic relationships or innovative planning, but want to do humorous speeches instead, you still have the option to choose any path you want. So at the end, you can choose which path you want in Pathways despite the result of the assessment. But the assessment is supposed to help you figure out exactly what your best goals are, and in some cases it can be really correct. For instance, I actually found the assessment to be really useful and decided to stick with the best match. At this point, since this is the enrollment part, does anyone have any questions about this? Yes.
So you don't have to take the recommended path, but how many paths do you have to take total in order to become, say, a DTM?
There are 11 paths.
Right.
I do not know how many paths you have to complete to be a DTM status, and I'm not sure what the qualifications are for DTM. I will find that out and get back to you.
I mean, I don't think it's called DTM anymore, but.
It's still
It
called
is.
DTM.
Oh, is it?
Yes, I
Close
think
the
it's two paths, you have to go through all levels, and then you still have to do like, leadership things within the district. Cause I looked it up, but it still wasn't super good,
Okay.
but at least two full.
The speeches plus.
Does DTM mean Distinguished Toastmaster?
Yes.
Okay.
So like Bob mentioned also this before the meeting, before we had to complete 36 speeches to be DTM. I'm not sure if that's the same criteria as we still now, but if it's different, then I will find that out. Any other questions about enrollment? Okay, so again, as I mentioned, the Pathways Information Manual has a lot more information about how to enroll. It will walk you through all the steps, and the website is really easy to use. I will also share this video after the presentation so you can walk through it and you can see how it is done step by step if you miss one of the links. Let's move on to the next part of the agenda, which is what are your first 3 speeches? I know I said before that in Pathways, every path is different. That is true, but for every single pathway, the first 3 speeches are going to be the same. So before in the old CC manuals, all 10 speeches were the same, but now we are only doing the first 3 speeches for every single path. And once you finish those, that's where the Pathways diverges based on the one you have chosen. So since they are all the same, I'm actually going to tell you about these 3 projects and walk you through what they are, so you can get an understanding of not just those speeches, but also what kind of projects you can expect from Pathways. IceBreaker. This is the first speech, as always. I'm sure many of you are familiar. For newer members, IceBreaker is the speech that you first give to the club when you join. It is supposed to be like an introduction. You're telling the club about who you are, and the purpose of the speech is to help you organize your thoughts into a speech and learn how to be more comfortable in front of an audience. You're speaking for 4 to 6 minutes. That can seem like a short time, but for your first speech it is a big challenge. But it's a great step to actually start speaking. For existing members who are starting Pathways, yes, you still have to do IceBreaker again. But think of it as like IceBreaker 2.0. You're already proficient speakers, but now you get to reintroduce yourself to the club with IceBreaker. So that's the IceBreaker speech. Second, this is the speech called Evaluation and Feedback. This is a different kind of project, and this is the first introduction to a proper project within Pathways. So unlike other speeches, with evaluation and feedback, you're actually also you're completing multiple speeches. So what does it consist of? It consists of a 5 to 7 minute speech. So I've already given you icebreaker, but now this is the time when you can choose a topic that you're really interested in and give a speech on anything you want. So this is a great place to actually start exploring different topics because it is completely open. After your speech, an evaluator will of course evaluate you and give you feedback, as well as all the members who will give you feedback through the ballots, which you will get. And the purpose of this project is for you to schedule a second speech with this schedule and incorporate the feedback you got from the previous one in the second one. So now here, you have the choice of either giving the same speech all over again, but including the feedback. For instance, if it said that for the first speech, you were always behind the podium. For the second one, you can do the same speech again, but memorize it and give it in front of the podium instead. But it's up to you how you want to give that speech. You can give a different speech with different content, but you have to incorporate the feedback. The last part is serving as a speech evaluator. So Pathways introduces the role of evaluations really quickly, almost with the second project and after your third speech, which seems like it is pretty quick. But I think it's a great thing because evaluations are something that you have to really practice to get better at. And what does the project do is it shows you exactly what the steps are to give a proper evaluation. It will walk you through the different steps in the evaluation. For instance, it will teach you how to form a proper evaluation, like an impromptu speech. It can be a challenge for new members, and I think starting early on with the second project is a great way to actually get more comfortable with it. So that is our second project, which is called Evaluation and Feedback. Yes?
So do you serve as an evaluator after you give your second speech or before?
It is up to you. You have to finish all three parts in separate.
It doesn't matter which order.
It does not matter which order. We have had members who have done both ways.
Okay.
Yes. But you have to finish all the three of these roles in separate meetings.
And that counts as one speech?
It counts as one project, but it counts as one completion of a project in Pathways. Think of projects rather than speeches.
Okay.
Some of them are still speeches, but it's still a big project. Finally, research and presentation. Now this is a big project. This is actually one of the easier ones in my opinion. And with this project, what you're doing is you research a topic that you find that you really know a lot about, but the audience may not know as much. So you can choose any topic. You should remember when I gave my research presentation, it was on the Indian sport of cricket. I knew a lot of that, but almost none of the people in the club knew anything about it. So this is something that I researched. What the project does is it gives you worksheets that you can use to research your topic, that you can use to formulate all of the information like your resources or sources and make it a proper 5 to 7 minute speech. But in the end, it is still just a speech. And just because it's research based, that doesn't mean that you cannot have anecdotes. Doesn't mean you cannot have personal stories. It is still a speech, but it's supposed to have some kind of subject behind it. This is the last speech in level 1 of Pathways. And it's simple as that. You're giving 3 speeches: icebreaker, evaluation and feedback, which is 2 speeches, and the research speech. Once you do this, you have finished level 1 of Pathways. And the greatest thing that comes after finishing level 1 is that you actually get a certificate of completion once you finish it. I think that's a great thing. So just 3 speeches and you get a level 1 certificate. And as you complete more, the great thing is you actually get more certificates. I already have 4, and I'll have showing these off. So I think it's a great incentive for you all to complete speeches, get certificates, and show them off.
Don't show yourself.
So
Wait, I have a question,
Yes.
Ravish. Don't you have to put in your evaluation? from your evaluator before you can complete your speech?
So that's a very good question.
Okay.
So evaluations are up to you how you want to use them. So we always print the evaluation forms, but you can store them in a clipboard. You can actually also upload them on the website as well if you want to store them on the Pathways website. So it is always in the same place. Or the only thing you have to do at the end of each project is you have to make sure that you complete the actual project. So if you look at
Ravish, who will upload the, Ravish,
yes.
who will upload the evaluation? Will it evaluate
It is
or
up,
the
no,
speaker?
you actually upload that yourself.
Does
So
that mean scan it or type it in?
you can scan it, you can only scan it,
Okay.
but it is optional. So in the newer version of the manual, I actually removed that section because it is an optional part, and I think it actually makes things more complicated and more confusing. So rather than having to upload the evaluation form, you can simply complete the project and move on to the next one. And the instructions for this are actually on, I'll show you this as well. So there is a section on page 11 and 12 that shows you how to actually complete the project when you have finished the got your evaluation or have done everything. So all you have to do at the end of your speech is make sure that the project is ticked off and that it has completed properly. Does that make sense?
Yes, but my question is, if you're the evaluator, you give them an evaluation in
Yes.
person and you write it on a piece of paper, or the evaluation form, I should say. Is there a way as the evaluator that you can log in, obviously under your profile on Toastmasters, to evaluate the person and it register on theirs, or does it communicate in that
No.
way?
Because the only person who has access to your speech and projects is you.
Okay,
The base camp manager, who is the VP of education, is the other person who has access to everything.
got it.
But again, I think handling evaluations and uploading them on the website is just a additional complicated step that Toastmasters provides. But it's not something that you have to do.
I was
It's an option.
just typing, log in as yourself and
Yes.
say, hey, I'm evaluating so-and-so person's speech, and
Yeah.
just type. Sometimes it's numbers,
Yeah. Oh,
but that's not the case. You have to
No.
put paper in the.
Toastmasters does not care what your evaluator said about you. They
Okay,
only care that you have finished the project.
okay, got it, okay.
So you can either keep the paper copy or upload it onto the
Yes,
site?
it is a good idea to always keep your evaluations with you, because we no longer have manuals. You can keep them in a clipboard or something and just have them with you. But you also have the option to upload them, but it's just an additional step that's really unnecessary. Okay, moving on. While we're talking about evaluations, so evaluation forms. The main difference between the old evaluation forms and the current one is that now it is a 3-page document, and each speech you give has a different evaluation form based on the content of the speech. For instance, this is the evaluation form for the IceBreaker speech. It says on here that there is evaluation criteria for IceBreaker, and it has specific criteria that you have to meet for the IceBreaker speech. Right now, Bob is my evaluator, so he has a different evaluation form that actually goes for my speech, and it is supposed to evaluate the content of a keynote speech. So that is what makes each evaluation form different. They look the same, they're a 3-page document, but they all can be a little different. Okay, so you may be wondering, how do you access this evaluation form? So whenever you are on the Pathways website and you're looking through your project, one of the things that you will always find is you're going to get to the last page of the project itself. There's going to be a link here that says evaluation resource. When you click on it, it will open up the PDF which will have all of the evaluation forms. You can print that out for your evaluator, and that is your evaluation form. That's it. The actual page will have other information as well, like you can print the actual project itself. So you can literally print the whole project, including the requirements and what it has, it's going to be really long, but you can always print that. There are checklists, there are other resources. So if your project has worksheets which you can use to organize your speech, those will also be listed here. So everything is going to be on the last page of the project itself, and you can print the evaluation form for your evaluator. So that is one additional step from before that you have to complete now, is you have to bring the evaluation form with you in person on the day of your speech. Any questions on evaluations? Okay. There are more instructions on the manual itself again. If you have the old version sent last week, it's on page 7 to 8. And the new one sent this morning on pages 8 to 9. Okay, so few other things. We talked about level 1 of Pathways, that there are 3 speeches: the IceBreaker, evaluation and feedback, and research and presentation. But that's just level 1. We have 3 speeches there, but after level 1, the speeches become more different. As I said before, each pathway is different, which is why starting from level 2, these speeches are no longer titled, but they're just basically projects that say that you have to complete one required project plus additional elective speeches. And each level will have a different number of projects. Some pathways will actually have a different number of projects based on what you are doing. So this is where pathways starts to get a little different. So right now, for my level 5, I actually have to do only 2 speeches, including this one. So that is where mine is right now. Any questions on the other levels? Okay, so one thing I mentioned right now is elective speeches. So this is something that is really new with Pathways, is Pathways has elective speeches. So what are elective speeches? Well, as you see, the first 2 levels are pretty simple. But starting with level 3, 4, and 5, you have all these other speeches here. And you're thinking, okay, I have to do all of these? Well, no. Because with elective speeches, the idea is that they are optional speeches, but you have to complete a required number of them. So for level 3, you have to complete 2 elective speeches. And these can be any of these electives you want to choose. And there are different types. For instance, we have elective speeches on using visual aids, or one for using vocal variety, learning how to use body language. There is even one for how to learning how to prepare for an interview. But these elective speeches are all different, and you can choose which ones you want to do. And just because it says there are, you have to choose 2, doesn't mean that you have to only choose 2. You can do as many as you want, and if you want, you can finish all of them. So if you want to work on all these skills, go for it. I personally have finished 5 of the level 3 electives myself, because I wanted to work on those specific skills. But you can always come back to it. So if you are on level 5 and want to come back and do a level 3 elective, you can electives become a little more different. But now instead of having 2 electives, you only have to do 1. And they are a little more different as well. There's one called question and answer session, in which you give a speech and have the audience ask you questions at the end of your speech. You can have another one, for instance, managing a difficult audience, in which the audience interrupts you within the speech itself. So that's level 4 electives. You choose one, yes.
So there's no electives in level 1 or 2?
No.
And you can move around between 3, 4, you don't have to do it in an orderly fashion?
Once you can always go back, but you cannot go forwards until you have gotten the certificate for that level so far.
Oh, okay, so I can't do level 4 and then go back and do one at level 3?
You can. So what I'm saying is, let's say you're right now, you're at level 1. So at this moment, you cannot do a level 4 elective. But once you get to level 4, then you can.
Okay.
And then you can also give a level 3 elective, because you're already at level 4. But you cannot jump ahead, but you can always go back.
Do you get credit for additional electives or just for the 2?
You do not get additional credit for doing additional electives. But it's something that Pathways offers that I think is a great thing. It allows you to customize the skills you want to take. You should want to work on skills like, if, for instance, you should think that you want to work on social speeches, because that's something you want to work outside the club. There's an elective that allows you to work on a social speech. So that's a great thing, because not everyone may want to work on giving a social speech, but if you want to do it, you have the option to choose it.
What's a social speech?
I think it's like giving like a wedding toast.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not sure though. I didn't do that one.
What's your path?
Persuasive influence.
Okay.
Yeah. Many of these electives are actually common between many of the paths. So you'll see that they mix and match a lot, but there are some differences, crucial differences between each of them. With level 5, the electives are even more different. You have high performance leadership, which is managing a much larger project. We have preparing to speak professionally, which is the one I'm doing right now. So you can choose which elective you want to do in each of these paths. You can do, you have to do at least 2 for level 3 and 1 for each of level 4 and level 5. And that's all electives are. Electives still work like regular speeches, so you still get the evaluation form for the elective on the actual page, and you access it using the same instructions that you would use for any other regular speech. The instructions for this are on page 17, which is where you can find this. Before I end and go to the last slide, I'm gonna, does anyone have any more questions so I can go back and answer them right now?
Is there a way? Oh, if you are time, we can talk about this later. It's kind of.
Oh, I'm fine.
It's way under guy.
We're already over time. I think I already disqualified, so.
My thing that what I presume is missing, unless you can tell me different, is that when we had the manuals, you got the whole entire book. You get a whole competent communicator book, and you can flip through it and like go down the nitty gritty of what each project requires.
Yes.
And what I'm looking at now, when I go on Pathways, I have to pick a path, and then it will tell me all the nitty gritty of the projects. I can't go look at the other ones and see, do I want to do 10 speeches about all of these things,
Okay.
and all these requirements? You can't get to the nitty gritty of each requirement of each speech
That is,
without being in that path.
that is
Am I
not,
correct in that?
you're almost correct, but the good thing is that Pathways has been around for 2 years now. So people have made all of that information publicly available. So what we can do as a club is we can compile that information at the end of this manual as an appendix
Okay.
and have that available for all members. So you can view which path has which projects. Would everyone be interested in that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
Keep
part
them
that,
master.
I'm gonna sign up for the class before you get the syllabus.
Okay.
I know, but I at least wanna know before I go down this rabbit
Yeah.
hole. Like, oh, I'm gonna have to do a speech about blah, blah, blah. Like, this one says something about doing a podcast as an elective. Absolute, like, there are certain
Yeah.
topics, like, absolutely not. I'm not even gonna even attempt
Yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah, it's an
attempt
elective.
that, so I'm not even
Yeah.
gonna do that path. But I don't know
It's an
until I
elective.
sign up.
It's an elective. That's the thing though. You don't have to give a podcast.
But
if
you don't know
want.
until you sign up and what's required. How many?
You can do the other ones.
How many can you choose from?
Is there,
Electives,
no, how many paths?
there are 11.
Sorry?
11.
11.
11.
So,
Yep.
so these are the available
Right,
paths.
so there's like.
Oh, those are the electives.
Badges.
Yeah, and they are also
That is good, that is good.
they are also
You
on
get badges?
And then you get certificates, remember?
they're also on page
Slides.
2 of the manual. These are all listed on there.
What I wanna know is what on earth is visionary communication?
I know, and you don't know until you
So
Ask the preacher.
we actually have
Michael, you're the preacher, what is visionary
I don't quite
communication?
understand.
Seeing God.
So you do a quick overview of all the slides you just went over. Real quick.
What about strategic relationships?
okay. Enrollment. That's the easy one. There's a video. There's a video that I'm going to share after this meeting, which will walk you through the steps of how to enroll. The steps are also on the information manual that was sent out, and you have a copy of.
Okay.
So enrollment is actually the easiest step because you just choose a path and you do the questionnaire and assessment and get something that you want. The first 3 speeches. The IceBreaker, which everyone is familiar with. But again, even as a new member, you're an existing member, you're still giving an IceBreaker. Evaluation and feedback has 3 parts. The original speech, a follow-up speech that will incorporate the feedback you got from the first one, and an evaluation rule. The research speech in which you will research a topic and you will give a 5 to 7 minute speech on the topic you chose. Certificates. Evaluations. Let me know which trying to slow down. So evaluation forms are again accessed on the website itself. This is going to be on the last page of the whenever you are on a project. For instance, when you're on the IceBreaker project, when you get to the last page, it will actually have the link to get the evaluation form. And on in the manual itself, I'm referring here to page number 8, 7 through 9, basically. It shows you how to get to the last page, which will have the evaluation resource. So you can also get the evaluation resource if you want to get through from the very beginning. So there are 2 ways to get the evaluation forms, and I've outlined both steps here. So you can either go through the project itself, or go from the start and get a link to all the evaluation forms in one place.
The certificate just for getting.
I'll show you on the. Okay, on the manual here. I think this will be easier if I do this, right?
I feel pretty good about it now.
Okay. But this is what I'm talking about. Basically, you go to the. There's a section here that says your evaluation, and when you click here, it will get you the evaluation form. Okay. Rest of the pathway, first level. The rest of the levels are projects, and you have the elective speeches. So again, so this is the whole thing for visionary dynamic leadership pathway. For the appendix, what I'm going to do is I'm going to include all of these for each of the levels or each of the pathways. So you have in one place what you can expect from each of the pathways you choose. And
Hey,
yes.
Ravish, I don't mean to be rude here, but I think you'll have a lot of time. It might be worth more time because everyone has the manual. Just go through.
Go, correct. Okay, so no more questions? That's it. Okay. So finally, this is it. The additional resources. I have a few other resources that I would like to quickly mention. These are Facebook groups. People were actually found to be really useful. There are 22,000 members on each of them. So join them if you want to have any questions. And people responded within 20 minutes from my experience.
10,000 people trying to figure this out.
Yes.
On Facebook.
22,000.
And finally, if you have any more questions, ask us. We are here to help. Thank you.